So this final story, as I share this, what I'd like for you to do is think about someone in your life who you really appreciate. And my invitation to you, my challenge to you is to let them know. This last story is about my mom. And, I mentioned my mom. My mom passed away last year. And my mom and I had, as many of us have with our parents, we had an up and down relationship. But there was a lot of really good stuff. And one of the things that happens when someone passes away is puts a lot of things in perspective. But there was something that happened about 7 or 8 years ago with my mother that was a really profound moment of appreciation in my life that I want to share just as a way to close my presentation here. How many of you have ever seen those Chicken Soup for the Soul books? Yeah, most of you have, right? They got chicken soup for every soul you could imagine. And I love these books. I've loved them for years and have a bunch of them at home. And about 8 years ago, I got an email that said they were coming out with a new chicken soup book and they were looking for stories. And I got excited. It was before I'd published my books, and I decided I wanted to write a story and submit it to be considered to be published in this chicken soup book. This one was called Chicken Soup for the Single Parent Soul. Now, my folks split up when I was 3, and my mom never remarried, and she raised me and my older sister as a single mom. And because my dad wasn't around, and because my mom was a PE teacher, as I mentioned, and I said this earlier, she was the one that taught me how to throw and catch. So the story that I wrote to send into the Chicken Soup book was called Mom Taught Me to Play Baseball. And in the story, I just shared all about what she'd done and everything she taught me and what she'd sacrificed, and it was just an acknowledgement of her. Now, I was a little embarrassed when I wrote it because I didn't think they'd publish it. I told my wife, I shared it with my wife, and she liked it, and I sent it in. I didn't tell anybody else. And I waited for a few months, and I didn't hear anything back, and then about 5 or 6 months after I'd sent it in, I get an email back one day out of the blue, and they say, "Congratulations, your story's going to be in the book." And I was super excited. I told Michelle, like I said, it was before my books had been published. It was a really big deal. I said, "Michelle, I got to call my mom. This is so cool." And she says, "Don't call her." I said, "What do you mean don't call her?" She said, "Well, what if you wait till the book comes out? You could surprise her." I said, "Oh, that's a good idea." So I emailed back to the Chicken Soup folks. I said, "When does the book come out?" They said, 14 months. 14 months? That's a long time. I mean, I'm good at keeping a secret, but 14 months? So I tell Michelle, I said, 14 months. She said, "Wow." I said, "Well, okay." She said, "Well, let's not tell anybody so your mom doesn't find out. Let's see if we can keep a secret." And amazingly, we did. We didn't tell a soul. Nobody found out. 14 months pass. The book comes out right around my birthday in February. And I get a copy of it, and I wrap it up. And we're having dinner with our family, just us, just the family, not a big thing. And after we eat dinner, we sit down in the living room because my family has some presents for me. And we sit down, and I turn to my mom, and I said, "Hey, Mom, before I open up my presents, I actually have a present for you." And I hand it to her. And she looks at it, and she goes, "Oh, honey, that's very sweet, but it's your birthday. I'll look at it later." Now she's like messing up my plan, right? So I pick it up, but I said, "Mom, I know it's my birthday, but do me a favor. Would you just open it up?" And she's like, "Oh, but Mike, okay, fine." So she opens it and goes, "Oh, nice, they did one for single parents. Okay, I'll read it when I get home." I picked it back up and I said, "Hey, Mom, listen. I read the book, and there's a story in here that really reminds me of you." I said, "In fact, I put a bookmark. It's on page 294. Would you do me a favor? Would you read it out loud to everyone?" And my mom's like, What are you talking about?" Now she's sort of flustered and a little annoyed with me. "Okay, fine." And she starts to read and doesn't even realize what it is. And the first line of the story says, "On June 1st, 1995, I was standing on the pitcher's mound at Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha, Nebraska, about to throw my first pitch in the College World Series." And my mom looks up and goes, "This guy pitched in the College World Series." Totally not getting it, right? And then she starts to read the second line of the story, and she stops. And she looks at me. And she looks at the book, and she looks at me. You could see her brain was working really hard, right? And all of a sudden, her eyes got big, and you could see that she got it. That the story was about her, and that I wrote it. And she dropped the book, and she started to cry. And I leaned over to pick up the book off the floor. By the way, at this point, we were all crying. I picked up the book off the floor, I handed it back to her, and I said, "Hey, Mom, if you don't mind, could you read the rest of it?" And she did. It took her a while. It was pretty emotional for her, for me, for all of us. But my mom read that entire story out loud to everybody. And you know, it was a big deal for me. It was a big accomplishment for me to have that story published in that book. I was proud of that, absolutely. But by far, and especially now, the most meaningful aspect of that was being able to give it to her and acknowledge her like that. That's how powerful it is. Whether we do it in a big dramatic way or we do it in a simple day-to-day way, when we take the time, when we have the courage, and we're willing to look past all the imperfections and challenges and find the things to appreciate about other people and let them know, it's the greatest gift we can give to them. And it's the best way for us to empower not only them, but us and everyone around us. That's the power of appreciation.